Hotel and casino employees, what is the craziest thing you've seen a guest do? Story 1. I used to be the night auditor at a pretty sketchy hotel, the kind with permanent residents whose welfare checks go straight to the hotel to pay rent. My top 2 worst experiences were A. Around 2 a.m., I had to do a walkthrough of the hallways to look for homeless guys and people in hallways causing disturbances. One night, I walked up a service stairwell that was rarely ever used, and as soon as I opened the door, I was face to face with a guy with a needle in his arm, bleeding all over the place and nodding out. We made eye contact, but I'd be darned if I'm going to confront a blood-drenched junkie, so I just acknowledged him with a nod and left him. He was gone an hour or so later. But a year later, when I went back to show some friends from out of town where I had worked, the dried pool of blood and used syringe was still sitting in the stairwell. B. Again, on night shift, these 3 drug dealer guys, younger guys but regular hang-arounds of the hotel, came booking it down the stairs and out of the building, which raised my suspicions. A few minutes later, some super buff dude with no shirt on, totally covered in prison tattoos, comes into the lobby and starts pacing around. I was already a bit worried, but had a phone and a lead pipe behind the desk just in case. Then the guy looks in one of the mirrors and suddenly loses his mind, screaming, pacing, yelling, beating his chest. Clearly this guy is out of his mind and high as a kite. Then he walks over to me at the desk, and I'm just playing it super calm. Already told myself I would just agree with him till he leaves and call the cops. He starts telling me that he's been sent by the devil to cleanse the earth of the impure, and he hates himself for it, but he has to do it. Asks me if I'm impure, and I just shrug and say, I don't think so. Now I know this pipe I have behind the desk isn't going to do crap for me if the guy comes at me, and I'm seriously concerned. Again, this is 2 a.m., and there's nobody around but me. Finally, the guy goes upstairs, and I am one of the bigger guys I know living in the hotel. He starts freaking out because there's no power in his room. Turns out the psycho had turned off all the breakers on every floor of the hotel, so it was total darkness. I got on the phone to the cops immediately and started going through the check-in Rolodex to see who this dude was. And here's the icing on the cake. His only ID to check in were his release papers from prison, which showed that he had just served 450 days for assaults. The cops showed up, like 8 of them, when I told them his name and that he'd just gotten out, and took him away. So that was pretty terrible, and probably one of the only times I have ever seriously feared for my safety or life. Story 2. Not an employee, but a weird gambling story. So in Vegas, around 5:30 in the morning, my uncle and I were pretty drunk, and the only 2 guys playing at a craps table, having a good time. Suddenly, this normal-looking older gentleman comes up to the craps table and sits up right next to me. We greet him like, "Hey, how are you doing?" and don't say a word. So it's 4 people in a row, dealer, uncle, myself, and a new guy. Doesn't bet anything till the dice come to him, at which point he produces a black card and asks for 25 in a very thick Russian accent. Pit boss comes over and checks his pertinent and hands him $25,000 in chips. He then passes his turn and the dice goes to me. I roll an 8, and the guy proceeds to carpet the table in bets. Keep in mind, we're betting around $50. So after he's done with his bets, I roll a 7 on my second roll. The table gets wiped. We all stare silently. Dude doesn't say a word. I kept thinking he just bet and lost 2 of my cards. Well, the dice goes to my uncle. The guy pulls out his card again and asks for $50,000. My uncle rolls a 6 on his first roll, and the guy proceeded to carpet the entire table once again in bets. My uncle rolls a 7 on his second roll and clears the table again. Dude just bet and lost my entire college tuition. This time he starts going off, swearing in Russian. Not at me or my uncle, just at random. The dealers are waiting politely, and the pit boss looks nervous. The guy calms down and pulls his card out and asks for another $50,000 and passes the dice to me again. After that, we ended up playing in complete silence until about 7:30 in the morning. This guy betting outlandishly and never touching the dice himself. We ended up with better rolls. He recovered most of his money, and when he packed up to leave, he turned to me and said in his Russian accent, "Well, thanks for nothing," and tossed a yellow chip on the table and left. That's 1,000 tips. Too long didn't read, the Russian mobster loses 75 grand in 4 dice rolls thanks to myself and my uncle. Bets until he makes his money back and tips the dealers $1,000. You're lucky he made his money back, or the internet wouldn't be hearing this story right now. Story 3. Okay, bear with me because this is a bit of a long one, but totally worth it. A friend of mine was blind drunk one night on a weekend away. Like he was communicating by grunting and pointing. His mumbles were drunk. He made us stop at the convenience store on the way back to the hotel and bought a 4-can pack of Guinness and a hand of bananas. Nobody knows what's going on, but the guy wants a snack. We can handle it. When we get back, he takes a pillow into the bath and screams at us to promise him that we won't use the bathroom sink. What the frick? Fine, sure. Are you okay? Why are you taking a pillow into the bathroom though? Don't you want to go to bed? He decides we are not to be trusted and shuts the door. As we get ready for bed, we hear him tipping cans of Guinness down the bathroom sink. 9 a.m. or some ungodly hour, housekeeping turns up. We have hangovers. I don't know how he feels. She comes in and opens the bathroom door and shrieks. We run over and realize why. We see what she sees. On her left, a naked man sleeping in the bathtub, and on the right, a sink full of Guinness with about 4 bananas floating in it, having spent a few hours there. They're lumpy and the color of the beer. I don't need to tell you what it looks like. You butthole, we think. You genius. He wakes up and quickly assesses the situation. He remembers his cunning plan to float bananas in a sink full of Guinness. He stands up out of the bath and starts plucking bananas out of the sink and cramming them into his mouth, all while maintaining ferocious eye contact with this terrified Asian housekeeper. The way she shrieked the second time made me think it was the craziest thing she'd seen a guest do, before running away never to be seen in our room again. Max LOLs. Story 4. I've got loads of hotel stories, but this particular one stands out the most for me. The hotel I worked at had a wedding group stay with us one day, and the bride was staying on the 11th floor. During the morning of the wedding ceremony, as the bride was getting ready, she hung her wedding dress on the in-room sprinkler head, despite there being a sign explicitly stating not to hang anything on the sprinkler head. A couple minutes later, we started getting guest complaints of water dripping from their ceiling, and the local fire department was at our entrance. They rushed up extremely eager to knock down the guest door, despite us telling them that we can just use a master key. Long story short, we found the bride locked inside her bathroom, refusing to open the door or get out of the bathtub because she didn't want to ruin her makeup. The water damage caused during this incident spread from the 11th floor all the way down to the 5th floor, and 5 years later, we're still dealing with repairs as problems arise. We charged the guest absolutely nothing for this incident since insurance covered it. Another incident involved a guest who left candles burning in their room while they were out, which started a small but manageable fire. The crazy part was that the candles were surrounded by voodoo dolls. The guests never did show up that night, and their luggage remains unclaimed. We charged their credit card on file for the room damages and called it a day. This was over a year ago, and we haven't had a chargeback or dispute case open up. Really makes you wonder. Too long didn't read. Crazy bride broke hotel room sprinkler head and locked herself in the bathroom. Refused to come out even when the fire department arrived, and some guests doing voodoo crap in their room and mysteriously disappeared. Refusing to open the door or get out of the bathtub because she didn't want to ruin her makeup? That's hilarious. More stories if you have them, please. Story 5. Hotel FOM, front office manager here. Seen some stuff in my days. One of the hotels I stayed at basically turned into a senior home in the summer. One morning, my head housekeeper called me into one of the rooms. I took one step in, and my jaw unhinged and hit the floor. The bed looked like someone had put a cherry bomb in a colostomy bag. Crap was soaked into the duvet, the top sheet, the fitted sheet, the down pillows, the accent pillows, and into the mattress. We had to throw everything, including the mattress, out. There was another incident that same summer where someone forgot to put their Depends on underneath their shorts. I'm assuming a fart went wrong, and it looked like Ringling Brothers had marched through the lobby at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Let's see, what else? A different hotel where I was a front-end manager threw a frat sorority mixer. Big mistake. Was doing some rounds to make sure no one was causing trouble, stopped in the men's employee restroom/locker room to see one of the sorority girls with a dong in her mouth, a dong in each hand, and two other dudes waiting, not so patiently, to pound her like a $2 omelet. Booted them all out for that. If I remember correctly, we had a bunch of them arrested for sneaking in booze, drinking outside, and trying to take up in our bathrooms. I also had one girl whose ATM card was declined and offered to frick me in exchange for $100 so she could drink some more. Same hotel on a different evening. Working overnight, I caught two dudes effing on the Cruisin' USA video game machine at 1 a.m. My exact response? There are 123 rooms here. Frick in one of those. Haha, the memories. Pound her like a $2 omelet? I'm trying very hard to figure out what the simile means, but it's really late. Story 6. While not a hotel or casino employee, this is the craziest thing that happened in a hotel that I've ever seen. 2 years ago, I was a part of the local volunteer fireman crew, and one day while sitting around the firehouse, we got a call from an ambulance crew that said they needed help at a hotel in the town. Now, most of the time when an ambulance crew calls for help, it's normally cutting people from a car crash or some crap like that, but not this one. Oh no, this is one that will stick in my mind for a long time. So we get to the hotel thinking that the person is stuck in a car or in a hotel room underneath some heavy object. We meet the hotel manager at the front door, who brings us to the hotel room where the ambulance crew are with the injured party. I enter the room expecting a man pinned underneath some very heavy object, but no, what I saw was a man in his late 40s, butt naked, with a dong ring over his dong and balls. You see, the man was with his wife, and the two were celebrating their wedding anniversary, and they wanted to have an intimate, fueled weekend away from the kids in a hotel. The man thought that to keep a hard-on for all the intimacy they were planning, he should pop a few little blue pills and put on a dong ring. Bad move, because after an hour of doing it, his dong ball swelled and he couldn't take off the dong ring. After an hour of worrying what the frick they're going to do, they call an ambulance crew, who call us, and we spend the next hour very slowly cutting the dong ring off, making sure not to chop off the poor man's dong and balls. I want to think you used a fire axe to cut it off. Story 7. Casino security supervisor checking in. I was doing an escort for a chip run, where we escort another employee who carries chips across the floor to a table that was worth about $47,000. Of course, I called it up to our surveillance team, and they were watching on cameras. Some guy walking by grabbed the case of chips and made a run for the door. I was hot on his heels, but he was fast, and the casino was crowded. At this casino, our surveillance guys had the controls for the magnetic locks on the doors. 10,000-pound test. They locked the doors he was running to, and this guy barreled headlong into the doors. Knocked himself out cold. We secured the area, collected the chips, cuffed the guy, and got him into the security office to wait for the police. Other stories. No, this is a Canadian casino, but downtown in a major city, a professional mixed martial arts fighter got attacked by 4 guys. The 4 guys were able to reevaluate their life choices after the fact. A fight where one guy threw another onto a baccarat table, breaking it along with the $4,500 card shuffler. The drunk guy who casually puked at the craps table, then just kept playing. 2 guys got into a fight, and one of the combatants' friends drove his car into the middle of the fight, injuring both fighters. A guy walked around the parking lot with a crowbar breaking windows. He got through around 50 cars before the police arrived. A guy tried to rob Brinks with a knife while they were taking our deposit. Brinks pulled their guns on him and cuffed him until police arrived. It's a pretty interesting job. This stuff doesn't happen all the time, but even on a normal weekend night, we see stupid stuff happening. Story 8. Current hotel/indoor water park worker here. I haven't seen too many crazy things, but we've had a few guests that have left me scratching my head, asking myself, really? Anyways, we had a group of adults bring their kids in for the weekend to celebrate one of the kids' birthdays. They ended up staying on the 4th floor in one of our loft suites. These suites are easily the nicest rooms we have, cost way more, and can hold 11 guests. We received numerous complaints over their stay from other guests about the noise, yelling, kids banging on walls, etc. The crazy thing they did is they trashed this room from one end to the other. I'm not talking they just messed it up. I'm talking this room looked like it should have been on the TV show Hoarders. It took us 3 days to clean it. We found cigarettes pushed into the carpet, cake wiped on the walls and windows, used condoms on the floor. There were numerous holes in the walls. Looked like someone had punched them. Garbage just thrown on the floor. The patio chairs we'd keep in the balcony were broken. While I'm sure this isn't the craziest thing that some other internet people have seen, it's the craziest for me because I can honestly say that we've never had a guest or guests do that to one of our rooms. Story 9. My brother's story from a hotel casino that he did maintenance and plumbing at. A group of Latino men were staying at the hotel. No big thing, they get a lot of tourists who come to the casino and surrounding area. Well, one day a group of white men come in and went directly up to the hotel room and came out shortly later. They gave the front desk girl a slight nod and walked out. Less than 5 minutes later, cops and the DEA everywhere. These guys were second tier in a Mexican cartel, trafficking heroin in the area. My brother came out of the room he was fixing something in to see them taking the 2 men out of the room and taking out, in his words, those bricks of white powder in plastic wrap that you see in the movies. The guys that had just gone up to the room were undercover agents who had been posing as local heroin dealers for a while. No one ever came to collect their stuff. The cops took the drugs, guns, money, fake passports, IDs, etc. within the 30-day lost and found period. My brother got 4 nice pairs of leather shoes out of it, as well as a few button-down shirts. Another employee got all of their designer denim. Get 4 members of Mexican cartel's nice leather shoes? Post about it online. Story 10. Too long didn't read, impromptu booty call. I worked in surveillance at a casino in SoCal. We were watching this woman who was incredibly intoxicated on the casino floor. Typically, we would call security to deal with the issue, but she appeared to be making her way to her hotel room, so we chose to just observe her. She got in the hotel elevator and literally pinned one of the bellboys against the wall in true drunken cougar fashion. The bellboy reluctantly dodged her advances and got off the elevator right away. This isn't where it ended, though. She never actually hit a button on the elevator, so she just ended up on the floor that a random person was summoning elevators from. We observed her walk to the end of the hallway in drunken confusion, and she knocked on what had to have been a random room. A guy answers the door with a concerned, "Who the F are you?" demeanor. She pulls basically the same crap as she did with the bellboy, but this time she disappeared for 20 to 30 minutes. Afterwards, she walked out with messy hair and shoes in hand. We literally observed the world's easiest one-night stand in real time. Also, the lady got arrested about 4 hours later for getting in a fight on the casino floor. Story 11. I was a bouncer at the Hollywood casino. We have a regular there who just so happens to be a midget. He's insanely nice, respects the staff, tips well, and understands how dang well interesting it is to be that small. He even showed a crowd of 10-plus people he really can kick himself in the forehead. However, one night he came in looking unusually spiffy. He said it was a special occasion, and he was going to meet some people. I hear people cheering him on, having a good time, no complaints, it's going well. About 4 hours pass, and he comes outside. I see him with 2 girls, a blonde and a brunette, both in short dresses, walking with him. He's got a cigar in his mouth. He calls the valet, and he brings out a silver Lamborghini. The guy's straight up pimpin' tonight. He looks back at me, and I give an approving thumbs up. He has one girl on his lap, which was supported by pedal extenders, and another girl in the passenger seat. They're both kissing him as the seppuku doors go down. And as he drives away, I feel like a proud as F parent watching his kid go to college. Too long didn't read, pimpin' midget with a Lamborghini and some biddies. Story 12. I worked the front desk on the graveyard shift at the Pepper Mill in Reno, Nevada for about a year, and I saw quite a bit of ridiculous stuff. One story that sticks out is a gorgeous girl that is drunk as crap coming down the escalator into the lobby from the club they had there. She was in stiletto heels, short skirt, etc., and wobbling super bad. Then she gets off the escalator, and looking green in the face, she starts hobbling, jogging to the trash can to puke. She misses the trash can entirely and pukes all over the marble floor. What makes this hilarious is she was with some Guido Affliction shirt-wearing dude. As she pukes and misses, this dude runs over to help pull her hair back or something. When he gets to her, she slips in the puke and grabs him for stability, and he has her for a second until he takes a step to get more leverage, and he slips, and they both go down in the puke. They were literally rolling around in the puke. Then security helped them up, and I have no idea what happened to them after that. I have some other stories if there's any interest. More, please. Story 13. I work at a hotel in Las Vegas, for the next 4 days at least. Crazy becomes mundane after a while. One that comes to mind right now is when a guy walked up to my desk and asked for a manager. I usually like to, or rather the managers like me to, get a feel for what the situation is before they come out to talk so that they can be prepared. The guy told me that it was too personal, so I went to get my manager. I'm eavesdropping, and it turns out this guy needs to talk to Will Smith, and for some reason thought that my manager could facilitate this. Will Smith was not staying with us. We are not affiliated with him. It was confusing. Maybe Will Smith was in town and this dude was going door to door at different hotels in the off chance he'd find where Will Smith was staying. Or he was bat poop crazy, drunk, or high. Story 14. Worked in the kitchen for a hotel golf resort. We had a group of defense contractor workers in the house. They were VIP as far as the hotel was concerned. A bartender offered a special drink for their group, pitchers of kamikazes for $77 each. They ended up ordering over 20 of them, and there were only 25 people. The next day, I saw them all leaving in their fancy cars. Apparently, they got so drunk that some of them crapped in the pool and on their hands so they could smear it on the bathroom walls, and one of them crapped directly in the center of the floor of the exercise room. They destroyed their rooms, broke windows, and generally abused and annoyed the staff. They were asked to leave at 6:30 a.m. the next day. I'm a defense contractor and can assure you that this type of behavior is generally frowned upon in the industry. Story 15. A friend of mine here in St. Louis told me Chuck Berry left $20,000 in chips on the table at the casino he was working at the time. The casino kept track. Obviously, he's a VIP, held them, and he came back a few days later to claim them. Seems crazy to me, but from stories I've heard, pretty par for the course for old Chuck. Mr. Berry spoke to one of my high school classes. Before he arrived, our teacher spoke to us at length about his criminal history, especially the part about transporting a minor across state lines for immoral purposes, and then told us we could ask about anything we wanted but that. After the Q&A, he played My Ding-a-Ling. Story 16. A guy walks in after dousing himself in gasoline and carrying 2 pipe bombs. He walks in the entrance, flicking his lighter, then walks onto the floor to the player's membership counter, thinking it was the cashier. He puts the pipe bombs on the counter, then the fight is on. Security tackles him, and it takes 4 of them to subdue him. He's dragged to the holding cell, soaked in gasoline, with patrons running for their lives. Eventually, the casino is shut down and evacuated. The bomb squad shows up, and the casino becomes the Hurt Locker. They take the bombs outside and detonate them. This had to be in the newspaper. That's some crazy crap. Story 17. A drunk guy came out of his room and got in the elevator. The door closed, and then it opened. He was standing there on the phone with his dong in his hand, taking a pee. I told him I was kicking him out of the hotel. He came to the desk to apologize, and on the way over, he spit more than once on the lobby floor. He then wiped his mouth and tried to shake my hand and tell me someone took a pee in the elevator. I had to call the cops to come get him and take him out of the hotel. He didn't get a refund. I've also delivered room service to naked people. That sucks. Story 18. My old job as a recreation attendant, which is really a fancy title of pool boy, I was closing up, locking the gates for the pools, and picking up the towels. Our hotel has a pretty sweet water slide, so I have to lock that up too. Caught a couple just going at it inside the slide. I couldn't yell and had to maintain my professionalism to not get fired, so I said that it's a family hotel and pool. Guy had the audacity to ask if he could finish, and I just told them to leave. Girl was very hot though, so that's a plus. You should have told him he could finish if you could stay and watch. Story 19. I worked cleaning and reception in a small hotel. A big trucker came into the office warning me he had sweat a lot and could we please change all the sheets. We usually do, so that was no problem. He went in and checked when he left, and his bed was indeed damp. It was saturated, and it smelled awful. Why he thought I could be fooled into thinking this was sweat is beyond me. He'd peed the bed so thoroughly that it had leaked through a mattress protector and ruined the mattress, carpet, and the wall close by. Story 20. Crazy Ivan the Russian, not his name of course. He came in, threw down $5,000 in bundled bills. It took me like 15 minutes to count all of it. I was so nervous at the time and new to dealing with baccarat. 2 hands later, it was gone. I never felt so sick to my stomach. Frick dealing. Bonus rage. I can't freaking stand people saying winner, winner, chicken dinner. I've freaking heard that crap 358 quadrillion, 907 trillion, 324 billion, 987 million, 349,832 times a freaking night. Holy frick, I can't stand that crap anymore. Story 21. I don't work a hotel, but when I was staying in a hotel in Edmonton, there was this 60-ish-year-old man sitting butt naked by the hot tub in the pool room eating spaghetti and meatballs with his hands, and dropping various sized batteries into the hot tub from one of those reusable grocery store bags filled with them. I promptly noped out of there and informed the front desk clerk. I bet it was a performance art piece. Story 22. Not an employee, but saw someone bet on every single spot on the roulette table except for one number. That number landed. No one said a dang word and let the guy walk away in peace. There are 38 numbers, including 0 and 00. If a number hits, you get paid 35 to 1. No matter what number came in, that guy was going to lose, unless of course he had different amounts of money on numbers. Story 23. My girlfriend works as front desk manager at a pretty large hotel. She said one night guests were complaining of a smoke smell. The fire department was called. In a room, they found that some guests were using the toilet to cook food. The seat had been removed since it's plastic. There was charcoal inside with a metal grill on top of that. They were cooking chicken on the toilet. Story 24. Another story I was told about was that this older gentleman came in there, had to be in his 60s, and brought all his life savings. He played all night and lost everything. This poor, beaten man then goes out to the parking lot and puts a bullet through his skull. I'm sure security and the local police had fun with that one. If that's true, that's really saddening and so dumb at the same time. Story 25. Former slot floor manager. People reach over the EMTs and a guest on the ground who's having a stroke drops coins into a slot machine. Seriously, freaking blazing sevens can wait. Come on, man, all the unlucky just spilled right out of that slot and it's laying there twitching on the floor. Get out of my way. Story 26. I recently had a guest expose himself to a 14-year-old girl. The hotel is shaped like a C. He was on one side, she on the other. Gross sucker stood in front of his window touching himself. The best part is he tried to say he was in a towel, but all the towels were dry and hanging up in the bathroom. Story 27. Can I comment if I work in a theme park? Because one time a guest took her shoes off and walked through puke that we were dissolving with sawdust back to her seat. When we told her to watch her step, she said, I've walked through worse. That's pretty gross. Story 28. When I worked at a resort, a drunk guest grabbed a trolley from our lobby, snuck it outside, and attempted to ride it down a 40-foot-long stretch of stairs. Of course, he hit his head on the way down and had to be driven to the hospital by one of our shuttle drivers. Story 29. The cocktail waitresses were always telling horror stories about people crapping and peeing themselves because they were on a hot machine. Another thing they'd do is pee in the change cups, so they didn't have to get up. Story 30. There was a jazz festival in the town, and lots of performers stayed in the hotel. Then, once, a few jazz musicians met in the corridor and started to improvise. It wouldn't have been so crazy if they hadn't met at 2 a.m. Thank you for not making it a crap story. Story 31. I work at a hotel front desk, and about 10 minutes ago, a guest told me he would pay to watch me strip on our front counter. I really need a different job. Sorry about that, I was a little high on NyQuil. Story 32. I saw a guy drop his pants and start humping a slot machine. When security removed him, he said he wanted to screw the machine like it screwed him. That is disgusting and hilarious at the same time. Story 33. Former cast member for the Disneyland Hotel. I didn't meet the guest personally, but got the joy of seeing them plummet to their demise after jumping from one of the top floors. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.